they win $5,800. And in 10 minutes,
So
that's
who's
not a
for
bad
white now?
wage.
Who's
I'm going
leaving in
for white.
Maxim?
So let's see what's happening. Okay, so they're playing and the game is on, of course. So the second game is working.
Berlin.
Oh, no. Okay, so let's see. Well, it looks like a main line, Berlin. I'm not even going to try to play the moves on the ball. We'll wait until they catch up. And, of course, we've seen this being played a number of times. So I think Hikaru's thinking... Also, Hikaru's thinking the quicker the speed limit gets, the better chances I've got. So if Hikaru draws this, then that's going to get him to a better position. They've swapped arbiters as well now. As you can see, they're doing musical chairs with the arbiters. And, OK, we're going to catch up with those as they come through. But we're a little bit behind. So H5 being played. And here, standard Berlin line, which has been, obviously, both these players know this position incredibly well. At top level, you have to study this in depth now. And Maxime thinking about what strategy setup he wants to go for. OK, any predictions now? So who thinks this is going to be a win for white? Anyone? One person.
Yes,
Two
Lee.
people.
Yes.
Three people. Anyone thinks Nakamura's going to win? I was actually waiting for the draw until later, but anyone thinks this might be a draw? Nearly 90% of the room here thinks it's going to be a draw. I don't think it's going to be so easy because it's blitz chess, quick play chess, anything's possible. So bishop e7 being played, both sides developing quite naturally. Rook d1 being played, and here we go with Hikaru thinking about what strategy to play. Now, if this game is a draw, quite an interesting fact, we will then go to the next time limit, which is 3 minutes plus, okay, the moves are coming in, we'll get back to them in a second, but it'd be 3 minutes plus 2 seconds a move. And when they played this online in what's called a death match in December, Nakamura won that segment by 4.5 points to 2.5. So he really did dominate in that segment, Maxime. But the quicker it gets, I think it's fair to say, the more Nakamura's chances rises. And okay, well, now he's got two bishops, so Maxime's got two bishops. They must still be in theory here. This actually, I know this line. This has been played, I think, at the highest level recently. And taken on f6. Is there any advantage here? Well, knight takes h4 is a threat that could be played. But again, I've seen this position before. This has occurred in a number of games. Not two bishops, excuse me. But he's got rid of black's two bishops advantage.
And again, with the different colored bishops, you can expect that this is a very drawish.
Very drawish, yeah. Very
outcome likely.
Yeah, I mean, the pawn structure is better for white. Let's not forget that. The pawn structure is okay. By the way, last move, I do believe that knight takes h4 has been played a number of times. I've even seen this being played at top level with players of this strength. So rook c8 could actually be quite a new move, only been played, according to our information, once before. So Hikaru using this move to try to get MVL out of his theory. So rook c8, I don't think there's any danger really for white though, because his pawn structure is better. I mean, you've always got these pawns in the Berlin. Something like king h2 here to stop knight h4 could be normal. You've also got to think about rook e1, these kind of moves.
Rook e1 looks quite natural because we are forcing the king to move.
Yeah. So something like rook e1 and now king f7, and maybe at some point we have to go king h2 along these lines. I have to say rook c8 has only been played by, I'm not going to say in a correspondence game between two players at 2100 strength.
Do you know actually who's the leading nation in the correspondence game?
Who's
the leading nation in the correspondence?
I don't. Who is it? Germany, probably. Okay, I was going to guess. Yeah, I thought you might be.
You're the hard workers, you know.
You should be. I thought you might be setting me up there for something. So, so the hard-working Germans are the leading correspondence players.
I mean, in the majority, not like the number one, but
it doesn't surprise me.
As a team.
As a team, yeah.
I think we had been world champions even as a team.
A number of times.
Yeah.
And okay.
We have the longest patience. True Germans.
And b6 played. So okay, it's a fairly even position. This should be a draw unless something tragic happens. Hikaru even looks slightly bored.
How about double?
Well, knight to e4 is the first new move, but it's a very obvious move. And okay, what's White's plan here?
Maybe we can try to start like something b3, c4 to just get the square on d5 controlled. This could be an option. Then to double the rooks on the d file. And at some point, even there might be ideas with f3, g4. It's too early now, but at some point
Later on, you might be able to play this idea. And well, he's brought his rook to e1, which is a very sensible move to play. Just putting the rook on a open line, and if things do open up, then obviously the rook's going to be well placed there. The rook on g6 is a bad piece, so Black's brought it back around with the idea of just controlling the first rank, and I don't really see how much progress is going to be made here through either player. I mean, is there a tactic with knight bishop g5?
I think it's too early because you can take twice. Because the rook takes.
Yeah.
I mean, f takes, knight takes, rook takes.
It's just a little tactic to try to spice things up. But okay, he's gone for the more positional b3 to try to get the pawn here. I mean, if Nakamura ever moves his rook away, like rook there, then this bishop g5 is quite a funny little tactic with the point of the knight coming into e6. But of course, rook f8 makes no sense at all. Their time, Nakamura, how much time has Nakamura spent? Nothing at all. So, okay. And what's happening here? Not much at the moment. b3, we're predicting a draw, but still lots of play left. Okay, so he's moved his rook to e8. That keeps control of the bishop, centralizes the rook. And what can either side do here? That is the question.
c4 here, probably.
c4, controlling d5.
Okay, after c4 there is some move like c5. And then the square on d4 is getting weak. So maybe it's a little bit premature.
He's gone f3, and now Black's gone c5. And you probably should go c4 here with White, I'd imagine.
But then I have a knight on d4.
Knight on d4 now, yeah, good point, actually. This knight could sit here if you go c4. That's why MVL's held off from this move. In actual fact, if Black can get his bishop to c6, let's imagine you transfer that bishop here, then it might be slightly preferable for Black in some cases. c3 first to cover that square, a5.
Now we could try to start with a4.
I'm kind of thinking it's slightly easier for Black to play this position,
right,
just slightly. Yes. You know, so Maxim's got a bit of work to do.
Black can move his majority, whereas White is stuck because of the h4 pawn.
h4 pawn, yeah, yeah, indeed. And this pawn on h5 is not a weakness. It's one of those cases where the majority over here, which often doesn't play much part in the Berlin, actually comes into effect. King g2 played, so the king is coming more centralized, and now there's always ideas of a4. Luckily, the bishop on f4 keeps this pawn on c7 tied down, so it's not too dangerous yet.
Rook e7.
Rook e7, so guarding that pawn. Maybe Black's idea is rook a8 and a4 here, something along those lines. If you get this a4 move in, and you can come down and take on a4,
and maybe
White's
it's
pawn's
just simply go rook b1 at some point.
Well, I think he's gone rook d2, trying to hold things up like this.
No, he would like to take the other rook on b1 without losing the d file immediately.
Yeah, keeping control of this file, yeah. So, and they haven't spent any time at all here, well, especially Hikaru. I don't think this is really, I don't know, maybe the way you've got to play against Hikaru. You know, the last game, Hikaru got a better position, but here he's certainly in his comfort zone. Okay, so who do we think's better? Still fairly even here. So, well, it's c4 as well. c4 is certainly a possibility. Is that worth considering here? Because now that White's weakened these pawns, c4 could be an idea. I don't know if you want to commit to this move, but c4 or a4 are the two main moves here. I think one of these moves could well come shortly. So rook d2. Hikaru thinking about any way to improve. Okay, so he's gone for this bishop maneuver we discussed earlier, putting the bishop on c6, and this also looked obvious, because then, if you want to try to win this position as Black, you can get rid of the knight on e4, and you don't have opposite coloured bishops anymore. So there we go. We should also mention that there was another GM norm gained in the tournament. That was Pogonina. Pogonina, sorry, I forgot how to pronounce it in Russian. Pogonina. So, okay, back to the game now. So, bishop c6, followed by some exchange on e4, is clearly Hikaru's idea here. Just get rid of that knight, and then you've got some ideas to play for a win. So, Maxime has to be careful. King f2 played, so we're expecting just bishop c6. He has gone bishop c6, improving the positioning of this piece. Nice to see how Nakamura was playing this. He's taken his time. What is Maxime actually going to play here? Okay, he's made sure that if an exchange on e4 happens, he doesn't have to take with his pawn. If he has to take with his pawn, he'd weaken his structure. Maybe some tricks now with g4, followed by knight g5 check. So that's a little tactic. You go g4, if the knight moves, knight g5 check. And Nakamura doesn't look impressed with those tactics. So he's simply increasing the pressure there and gone rook e8 there. So, oh, he said draw. Okay, so we think there's been a draw offer here, and that does look like, okay, they're not really making much progress, either of them here. So really, he's playing on. Well, he's either brave or crazy. We'll find out soon. So is he playing on? He's playing on. Okay, knight d2, and obviously Maxime now thinks his position's getting a bit better by doing that. Rook c8 back again. I'm surprised he's played on. I suppose
he probably knows that if he
one.
Fast as home control, he'll have less chance.
And I suppose one idea is g4 later on, if you can get that in. Some idea pushing this one. So, or even is there a knight c4 to e3? If you can get g4 in at some point, then it might be the way to go. I mean, okay, well, I don't know if it was a draw offer. That's what we're wondering. I mean, should black offer a draw around here? I don't know. I actually think white's. Now, well, now you can play bishop d5 at some point. I mean, sorry, you can. What's the suggestion? So we're suggesting bishop takes rook takes e2, and then bishop b5, trying to get rid of this knight like this. I mean, I don't think this should be. At worst case, just go rook e4. I mean, the pawn structure. If you can eventually get rid of the pieces, let's say the more pieces that come off, the better white's position becomes.
Because you have an extra pawn basically by the double pawns on c7 and c5.
You have an extra kingside pawn, so that might be why MVL. I'm not going to put it anywhere. I'm going to take your take. Well, I'm going to take that one, but no, I don't think so. I mean, if I go rook f4, you've still got these. You've got 3 pawn islands. I've only got 2, and I'm going to go c4 if I can next, clamping down on the pawn. So I still here. I'd say white's better with g4 coming. Let's see if he goes this anyway. He might try it if he goes bishop b5. I mean, of course, rook e4 is not forced, but it was just an idea. Starting again. Still, of course, fairly even, very even here, but I can see why MVL turned down the draw. And it might be bishop b5 played, so we're probably going to play this out. We'll see what happens here. It's going to actually occur as predicted.
So rook e4 is then kind of forced, because a double pawn would be actually too much to allow here.
Yeah, I think so. You don't want to allow bishop takes c4 and pawn takes c4, destroying your structure. So rook e4 looks very likely. Is there any others? Oh, he's gone rook d2. Okay. And he doesn't mind the doubling of his pawns, because actually this is not so silly from him. He's got rook d5 and rook d7. The more this game's going on, the more I'm starting to favour on the side of MVL, because again, the more pieces that come off the board, the weaker black's pawn structure will become. You can take on c4. This is critical. But now, how do you deal with rook d7 and also rook d5? Both these moves look a little bit scary. Of course, you can go king e6, and I'm guessing here rook d5 or g4. Ideas
even
come
to
into
get
things.
the king to h3, because we have some time as long as rook is stuck on c8.
Go king h3 and go g4.
Yeah, especially like c6 you don't want to see, because there's always bishop c7 and rook t6 in there.
Yeah, I'm liking this for white now. And the bishop generally in these positions is going to be better than a knight, because there's pawns on both sides of the board. And let's not forget, all of the pawns over here is on dark squares. So later on, that bishop will attack them. So rook d2 is a very good move. Very good move from MVL. And he's trying to encourage this bishop takes c4 when he can play for a win. And I'm not even sure it would be wise for black to take on c4 here. It might not be the correct way to continue. So a little bit of pressure here for Nakamura. We look at the time. They both spent about half their time now. Okay, Hikaru has that extra bit of time, but he's got to be careful. So what do we play? He's going for bishop back to c6, understandably not taking that knight off. Now, one simple way you could play risk-free here is go knight e3. Get rid of the knights.
But this is going to be very drawish.
It's going to be very drawish, yeah, indeed. I mean, that's one way you can play with a better pawn structure without much risk.
Then you could also have agreed on a draw and save some energy.
Yeah, save it for the next stage. But is there any other way you can play for a win, though?
Maybe there's some trick is g4, and if you take on h4, there's rook d6, but I think this is a little bit overdoing.
Okay, so let's have a look. Well, here, I guess we take once, for example. Well, we don't need to take once, but let's say we do.
You
and
go
I'll take
here, I want to play rook d6, and if you move your bishop,
Okay.
or you have bishop b5.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I thought like I can take on b6 and then continue.
Take some pawns, yeah.
Take some pawns, but I think it's too much.
Well, a4 was the move played, so this makes any opposite kind of bishop ending, in actual fact, much more dynamic because both sides' queenside pawns are being attacked by the opposing bishop. All of white's pawns, pretty much, are on light squares, meaning that an opposite kind of bishop ending is not just a clear-cut draw, because if one side's bishop can get in and attack those pawns, be an option here. And black, how does black do anything? You can't move the rook, c7's dropping. It's hard to find a good move here. So he's going for a knight maneuver, knight e7. And now knight to e3 surely should be played before that knight gets to d5. Giving away a bit of space, that knight e7 move. Knight e7.
Okay, also g4 is something to consider, but actually
Yeah.
95 is, I think, too bad now.
Yeah, I mean, if I was white here, I'd play this very quickly, just trying to stop a piece coming to d5. And next, I will certainly now try to get a pass pawn over here. And after knight g6, we could, well, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I'm just trying to wonder what these endings are like if you even take the bishop. I'm not sure if I go how they are. They're probably not that good. Okay, so knight e7, and now, so that's the point. The knight does come to g6 in some lines. MVL trying to work out what to do here. Time situation getting a little bit short for him now. 3 minutes and a half left, so that's not so good. Very short of time. He's gone rook d3 by looks of things. Defending c3. So if knight d5,
So yes, bishop d2.
bishop d2, safe and solid. So any predictions in the room? Anyone think this is not going to be a draw? Hands in the air if you're predicting it's not going to be a draw. Only one person is thinking it won't be a draw. Who are you going for? White or black? MVO or Naka? No idea. Okay, I like that. Yeah. That's a great answer. No draw, but you've no idea who's going to win. Like a typical blitz game. Well, it's getting to that stage of blitz chess. We have more moves coming through. Bishop c1, and now king e6. Rook e3 check's being played. Where's that king going? Back to f7. They've agreed to draw. Okay. Right. So very excitingly.